part two of going Dutch. So I feel right now I need to clarify to people who don't know the Dutch culture as I know it. I was married to a Dutch man. My kids are half Dutch. I did not live in Holland. I visited it one time and it was enough. Maybe not. I don't know. I lived with Dutch in-laws and I don't understand how an Israeli person can be with a Dutch person because of the following reasons. Okay, so at first he said, oh, we have so much in common. We both make sandwiches in hotels. Right. When you go to a hotel and there's a buffet, the Dutch and the Israelis make sandwiches and take it to, even though you're not supposed to take food out of the dining room. Very typical. Dutch like to save, Israelis like to save. Israelis like to save because they have the Holocaust syndrome. Dutch like to save because they have Protestant values, work values. They like to save money. The Jews like to save money, but the reason they like to save money is because they had to save money because they were being persecuted for the past 3,000 years or more. And different, same thing, but not really. Different reasons. Same behavior, different reasons. Okay. One thing very typical of Israelis is they're very loud. One thing very typical of Dutch, they're not loud at all. Israeli language has produced amazing songs. Sorry, we won the Eurovision many times. And the times the Dutch won it, I think only one time it was in Dutch language. I don't think it's a matter of dispute that the Hebrew language is more melodic. The Bible, the most beautiful, one of the most ancient texts of poetry was written in Hebrew. I don't know anything about Dutch language books. I haven't heard of too many Dutch writers except Anne Frank. Sorry. I did read one novel. It was so weird. Sorry. It's about people killing homeless people. I don't know. It was weird. It had violence. It had weird stuff. Maybe it's just a coincidence. If you can name a good Dutch writer, I'll read him or her. So I can list so many amazing Israeli songs. I mean, just go listen, just put Israeli songs. It sounds good. And also Israeli language, the culture comes from, you have people coming from the Middle East, you have people coming from Europe and Russia. So you have all these influences, and yet there's something Jewishy somewhere. With the Dutch, they have influence, they've occupied different countries, colonized, sorry. So you got Indonesian food, which saves them. If it wasn't for bami guri, oh my God, we would just be, come on. Without bami guri, the Dutch will not survive. So that was the one thing my Dutch mother-in-law, may she rest in peace, she's dead. She lived a long life though. She told me about bami guri. I've never done it. I think it's too much work. But anyway, a lot of spices. Indonesian food is amazing, no doubt. It was a good idea to colonize Indonesia, right? Okay, this is the negative side I talked about. The language, the Dutch language was, wow, it just was not very attractive, especially since they were talking about me, so I could hear my name. Didn't know what they said. We spoke English, but when he was angry, he cursed me in Dutch. And then I asked a Dutch au pair, and it wasn't nice. When I see TikToks, I see Dutch people really love cats. And that's a really good point. A lot of very intelligent people. If you go to Holland, they don't use curtains. And you can see so many books. So what's really funny is even if they don't read the books, they have books, which is my ex-husband. Oh my God, he had so many books, but did he read those books? I don't think so. I really don't. We never talked about books, except he had one book he liked, and that's it. A lot of soccer, madness around soccer, and we all know it if you've seen the recent World Soccer Tournament. Oh my God. It's not a pretty picture at 2 a.m. when he's screaming and you have kids that need to sleep. No sense of humor, except my father-in-law, also rest in peace. He died, but really old, really old. He had a really cynical sense of humor. I mean, oh my gosh. It was an intelligent, cynical sense of humor, and he used to listen to classical music. So he was, for me, the typical intelligent Dutch person who you really want to meet. If you're like me, I like intelligent people. I like cats. I like water. But I like the ocean. And the North Sea is nothing compared to the Mediterranean Sea where I grew up, where I was born and grew up. So the beach in Tel Aviv and the beach in Scheveningen by Den Haag is, well, night and day. So we went there, and you see a whole Dutch family naked. The grandfather, the parents. I was like, oh my God, not for me. The nudity. On the one hand, they're very conservative. Like there's some Calvinistic Dutch, and then you have some really, oh my gosh, people that are a little bit too liberal for my taste. Not my cup of tea, nudity and saunas and whatever. And I love the cat thing, but we never did the cat thing. I wasn't an animal person. He was an animal. I did not have a good marriage. I didn't live in Holland, but the Dutch family is very independent. They expect you to cope with everything. You have to cope. And that's why it's weird for me to hear this Israeli woman saying the Dutch husband went with her to the doctor the next day because she was afraid of being attacked. I have an American accent, so maybe, I don't know, but I've never, ever been afraid to say I'm from Israel. I haven't been living in Europe for some time, for 7 years, but I've never, ever, ever not said I'm from Israel. And I remember my Dutch mother-in-law. You know, they're characters. The Dutch are very unique people. So she said to me one time, you know, when people ask me where I'm from, I always say I'm from Holland. But in your case, maybe I wouldn't say it because I had some negative reactions in Europe. But I don't know. I'm just not the kind of person to hide that. I am not the kind of person to hide my Israeli identity. In fact, I'm kind of proud. Because my mother escaped the Holocaust, and we're kind of proud that we went back to our historical homeland. Anyway, so what's typical of the Dutch independent thinkers, usually? Now, the negative side of Holland that we can see now is they're really cowards. You know, the Nazis just went in there, and there's a Dutch underground that I will never tarnish their memory. There are Dutch righteous Gentiles, also in my ex-husband's family. Cornelia Blau saved Jewish babies, and she has a tree in Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. There's some amazing Dutch people who did a lot to save Jews, and there are Dutch people who love Israel. Not in my family, not in the present day family. The righteous Gentile died. So what I wanted to say is, one Dutch woman I befriended said, if all the Dutch people that said they helped the Jews really helped the Jews, there would be a lot more Dutch Jews alive. Because sadly, it was the country that gave the most Jews to the Nazis. And the Nazis just walked in there, you know? And the Dutch underground were very brave, though. And so I salute them. And the righteous Gentiles. I want to be fair. I really want to be fair. My kids are half Dutch. There's a lot of good things. Leeuwenhoek, that's a Dutch man invented the microscope. Where would we be? Where would science be without the microscope? Nowhere. And we also have a Dutch astronomer in the family who's also, he's in the Dutch Astro Society. There are some really smart Dutch people, but they're not really famous ones as much as Jewish people. They haven't won as many Nobel Prizes as Jewish people. So if it's a competition, the Jews, we've got sense of humor. I think most Jews are more warm-hearted. They show their feelings more. They're more communicative. Like the weather in Holland, my kids don't like to go to Holland mainly because the weather is so bad. And their father made them actually camp in a tent